And it was a very troubling time for me as well, because I'm involved in dawah, I'm doing this stuff, we're telling people stuff, but you're in this crisis inside, you're broken. That was very difficult, bro. Very, very difficult. I'll be honest with you, bro. I'm going to share this because hopefully it'll help someone. There was a periods where my anxiety and this state got so bad that I couldn't go out the house.
The Sahaba had similar intrusive thoughts. The Prophet ﷺ said, this is a sign of iman.
SubhanAllah. There's immediately a shift. The fear is gone. And then at the worst point, bro, okay, I've gone through all of these things. I remember there was a copy of the Qur'an on the bookshelf. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it's not going to have the answers. These other things didn't have the answers. This isn't going to have the answers. And then I picked it up and I landed on this commentary. That hit me like something very different, bro.
My beloved brother Imran Hussein, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, bro.
Welcome to the OnGuard podcast. We've known each other for over a decade now, I believe.
More than that, bro.
15 years plus. Yeah,
15
alhamdulillah. So you are an author and you are the senior instructor and researcher for Sapiens Institute. And you've written this amazing book called Dying to Believe, My Quest for Life's Ultimate Meaning. It's a moving book. It's an honest book. It's an authentic book. And within the book, you are brave enough and courageous enough to talk about your depressive episodes, your severe anxiety, your existential angst. And we have a campaign as part of Islam 21C called Hold On, which is basically taking the Islamic tradition and the principles and values and best practice and articulating it to individuals and to the community on getting people to hold on, to surpass the anxiety, depression, and even suicide ideation. And I'm intimately aware of your moving and powerful story. And I wanted you to come to discuss this with us because I really feel that you have amazing insights specifically on existential angst, depression, and specifically that kind of overpowering anxiety. So I want you to talk to us about your journey. And so start from the beginning, bro.
Okay, start from the beginning. Anxiety and these types of mental health, you can normally refer to as mental health conditions. I don't see them like that. They're natural human states that we all experience at some point or the other. Sometimes we get stuck in them. That's a different story. But I've gone through them or experienced them now looking back retrospectively most of my life, to be honest. Although I never knew about, you never categorize it earlier on. You just experience it. So yeah, I've always been somewhat of an anxious person for one reason or the other. Life experiences, the people that were around me, all of this type of stuff. But at one point in my life, you can say the one of the major crises was what I covered in that book, Dying to Believe, which was related to an existential type of anxiety, specifically at that time in my life, where I was, going through life, doing what everyone was doing, trying to enjoy myself, have fun, make friends, be relevant, figure out this thing we call life. And I got to a point where, I was always quite a deep thinker. I always used to like to think about the deeper questions of life. Why are we here? What are we doing? Where are we going to go? But as I got older, those questions became more pressing. And I realized at one point that the distractions in life were not sufficient in covering up these questions. And I also realized that these were the type of questions that you couldn't find answers to, at the time at least. I didn't have answers to. And I grew up obviously in a Muslim family, Muslim background, but it was a very sort of secular environment at the same time. Secular in the sense that, Islam was seen as a religion, Jummah, Ramadan, etc. But it was very relaxed otherwise. That's not to say that my parents weren't great parents, but obviously from a religious perspective, it wasn't emphasized or enforced or practiced, I guess is the right word, fully. So I'd never thought or saw Islam as an answer any experiences I had of Islam prior up until that point were somewhat negative. And what I mean by that is, going to madrasa, growing up, back then they had the sticks. They had the aggressive approach, the, forceful nature, stuff like that. It was always a negative thing for me, something that I wasn't really interested in. So at that point in my life, maybe 12, 13, 14, wasn't really religious, going to school, never really fit in with the popular crowd. I was always a bit of an outsider, a bit of a recluse. And yeah, I would think about these things a lot. And as I got 14, 15 years old, these questions started to really bug me and press on my mind. Who am I? What is life all about? What is life? Am I actually alive? I'm just flesh and bones. What is there behind me? What is this me that's looking at these things and even worrying about these things in the first place? Really troubling at the time. You can imagine for a 12, 13, 14-year-old, I mean, your mind hasn't yet fully developed. You don't understand these things fully, but these questions are there. They're real. And that also, now looking back, bro, the fact that I had these questions then, the questions themselves were of the nature that didn't fit my sort of mental awareness at the time. And it almost makes me wonder, maybe they came from a deeper intuitive place that I hadn't really, it wasn't just something we learn and through experience you ask these questions. Maybe they were there somewhere deep inside already. Every human has them. So they were quite new to me compared to what my mind was used to knowing and relating to. So they were troubling for a while, kept pushing them away. And then one day I remember very specifically, and I write in the book as well, I come home from school and I was going through a lot of emotional ups and downs, really aggressive, angry outbursts, things like this. I came home from school, went to the computer, and I was sitting at the computer. And the computer, obviously those days, the computers weren't as fast as they are now. So it's taking time to load. And I remember getting really, really angry. And I got so angry that I smashed the keyboard. I punched my hand through the keyboard. And in that very moment, it's like everything around me shifted. It was very weird. Like there was this change of conscious state, you can say, that everything, I was in my room, and I'm looking at my room and I'm thinking, this is my room, but I don't relate to it anymore. In a moment, it's taken away. It's like, what is it? I know it, but I don't know it at the same time. I'm looking at myself, I know myself, but I don't know myself at the same time. Now, if you look at that from the perspective of sort of psychiatry or psychology, that's known as sort of a type of derealisation, and it's an anxiety symptom essentially. It's where your brain is sort of shutting off because it's overwhelmed. So to protect you, your brain sort of shuts down in a sense. So everything, it cuts you off from everything. It's almost like a drug that normally antidepressants, they give you that type of same feeling as well, where you're almost like a zombie and you're sort of indifferent. But it's a very scary experience, bro. I remember walking out of the room. I'm still puzzled at what's going on. It's almost like you're waking up from the Matrix. And I'm looking around, I'm on my street. It's my street. I've grown up on this street, but I don't recognize it. What does it mean? What is this? My street? What does that mean? And then same with my friends. And it was very scary, bro, because I never experienced anything like that. So that was the beginning of it. And those questions were there at the same time, pressing. Now they were front and center because my now lived experience was the same. Like nothing is it real? What is it? You know it, but you don't know it. You relate to it, but you're not able to relate to it. It's almost like you're standing behind a glass wall and this frosted glass and you can see it, but you can't fully see it. You can't experience it. You can't touch it anymore, although you're there. So it was very disturbing, bro. And that phase, I would go in and out of those states for the next several years, bro, up until maybe, 18, 19 years old, up until my 20s even, when I turned 20. And I knew, I connected a few things over the time because I was experiencing it for such a long time, that these states are related to these questions that I'm having. About who am I, why am I here, where am I going? And I was looking for answers. I was looking at, this is when I started to look into some of the different philosophies and ideologies and different systems that were out there and what they had to say. Couldn't find any answers, bro. And it was, again, the more you looked, the process of looking brought a sense of temporary relief because you felt you were doing something about it. But each time you failed after looking, couldn't find the answers, that knocked you even further down because now that's one more option that you're checking off, and there's only a finite number of options until you run out, basically. And that was terrifying in and of itself. And during that phase, yeah, I went to see, I think my dad took me to a doctor once. He asked me, are you doing drugs or anything like that? I said, no, nothing like that. Never touched it. He diagnosed it as a type of neurosis. And then he took me to a few psychiatrists as well during that period. Different types of psychiatrists doing different types of therapies. Some stuff seemed to help, but not really, because the questions were still there and they would bring me back to the same place again. And they didn't really have answers to those questions. You know, they were trying to, I guess, treat the anxiety itself and not the fundamental cause for my specific anxiety at the time, which was these existential questions. And they couldn't, because of worldviews and stuff like this, something we cover at Sapiens. So I kept looking, and then there came a point where I started looking into different religions. Obviously, I started to ease this discomfort, got involved in alcohol, and alhamdulillah, I didn't get involved in too many like drugs and hard drugs and stuff, weed, alcohol, these types of things. Didn't really help. It would sort of just momentarily disrupt that state, put you in this false state of relaxation and so on. But next morning you'll be back at the same thing. And if anything, I was ending up developing bad habits, which were causing more issues. So I got to a point I was looking at different religions, there's a point where I would go outside different religious buildings and just say, God, if you're here, tell me what the answers are. I need to know. And it was, I think at that point I started to ask Allah, God, help me. Although I didn't know who God was. And it's funny if you think about it, being from a Muslim family, knowing that there is a God, but never being interested in the idea of God. And that's the way we live these days. It's that hedonistic type of lifestyle. Just enjoy yourself, do what you want. God isn't relevant. Even if you acknowledge there may be one, it's not relevant in your life. So I started to ask because I was desperate. Everything was falling apart. I couldn't do the same things that people normally do. I didn't understand the value or meaning behind going to school, getting an education. I was doing all those things, but having friends, socializing, waking up in the morning, it was the type of nihilism I was experiencing. This complete void and emptiness, no meaning. And then at the worst point, bro, I remember there was one day where I was looked at, okay, I've gone through all of these things. I remember there was a copy of the Qur'an on the bookshelf. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it's not going to have the answers. These other things didn't have the answers. This isn't going to have the answers. The last thing. And then I picked it up, I opened the Qur'an, and I remember, I think I was just reading, it wasn't an ayah. It was a commentary to an ayah in one of these translations. I think the Noble Qur'an translation, I'm not sure which one. And I landed on this commentary, and it said, just like at the darkest moment of the night, the rays of the sun come through and break the darkness. Similarly, in your darkest moments, Allah sends guidance to break the darkness. That hit me like something very different, bro. I can't explain it. It was almost like this is it. It wasn't a rational thing. It wasn't a philosophical thing. It was just, every, atom of my being recognized there's something here. This is it. It moved me, that's commentary. And then I remember I started reading the Qur'an. And I felt my heart inclining towards things like the masjid. Normally I would see Muslims with beards knocking, the Tablighi brothers knocking the door. It's a frustration to open the door, ignore them. Now I almost started to see beauty in them. I started to see beauty in the beard. I would look at the beard and think, subhanAllah, it's so beautiful. Just being in the masjid, going there, etc. And I was still doing other things like alcohol and stuff like this because it was a crutch. And then I remember there came one day, it's like Allah started to show me signs. Like something would come up on the TV, something would pop up on the internet, I'll be searching. It would be another little reminder, another little thing that directed me towards Islam. Answers started coming in this way, bro. In a weird way, I would have questions and answers would come in that day through a person, through an interaction with someone, something on TV, a channel, something would be said and it would answer those things. And I felt that, this was a type of, something's guiding me and directing me. And then I remember there's a point where I started praying. But still some of these feelings were still there. The derealization, the anxiety, stuff like this. And I remember there was one sajda that I went into and I said, Allah, I know this is the truth. I've gone through this a lot now. Please remove this from me, this last bit of anxiety. Wallahi, bro, when I came out of that sajda, literally as I lifted my head, the colors of the world changed. Everything changed. Everything around me changed. The feelings were gone. Those anxiety was gone. That pain was gone. In the moment, bro. How does that happen? So how does that happen? I don't understand. I don't understand it till today. I really don't understand it. You lift your head up you make a dua and it's answered before you raise up, and everything was different. It just like when I went into this anxiety, it was that moment everything went dark, lost its meaning. It was sucked out, like literally a vacuum. And now this is another similar moment where everything is just injected in with all of these colors. Not that physically colors and things changed around me. They were the same. But it's like, the heart, when the heart sees. It was that. I saw the same things, but they meant something else. Now they meant that these are all things from Allah. Allah's created, and these are all signs from Allah. They're all there from Allah. That was the most profound time for me. Maybe when my iman was the highest as well. Alhamdulillah, and then, started practicing. Those feelings disappeared, went away. I was probably the most happiest I'd ever been in my life. And then at the same time, I knew, okay, I need to get involved in dawah. I had this urge, okay, people need to know this message. This is the truth, because I experienced it. There's others out there that are suffering from what I'm suffering from. The truth is here. And then one thing after another, got involved in dawah. But that wasn't the end of it. So this is the...
Yes, so, bro, exactly. It was very moving. Man, Allah bless you. So you had an existential anxiety that was basically driven by these questions. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't look like you were exploring any intellectual answers per se. They're more, maybe you wanted that first person experience or that spiritual experience, if you like. And Allah gave you that through the first interaction with the Qur'an, the commentary, then engaging with the kind of Islamic symbols, if you like, the masajid, the beard, the brothers, and then after worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the cure to the existential angst wasn't necessarily some kind of profound answers, although we do have them. It was a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and begging Allah and beseeching Allah, which is very interesting because, dua, supplication is the essence, is the bone marrow of worship. Yeah. And, it's a kind of utter expression of our utmost dependency on Allah, because He is as-Samad, the absolutely independent, and He is Al-Ghani, the free of all need, and we are impoverished and dependent and contingent and needy on Allah. And through that dua, through that expression of the real state of the human being, Allah answered your dua. But in your book, you talk about almost like a second wave of anxiety.
Since there's been a second wave, there's been a third wave.
Yeah. So take us through the second wave, how you addressed it. And then once we do that, we're going to the third wave. Yeah.
So as is life, bro, it's a journey and it's a test. So yes, I found, and the thing was that in a sense, it was the experience that lived reality of connecting with Allah and Allah answering your dua and directing me. But also when I was reading the Qur'an, the answers were there, right? That, okay, Allah created everything. He created you with a purpose. That answer in and of itself, I think I internalized it in a way that I haven't internalized many things. Most of us don't internalize many things in our life. I really took it to heart and I believed it and it made sense. It was a very intuitive thing as well. And that made a huge difference. And then the second time, so everything is fine, I'm doing da'wah, but then obviously with the da'wah, then there's those challenges of fame and popularity, and you start off with the right intention, and then something along the way shifts that intention, being human, the ego, praise, how social media is, etc. So it started to get really popular in the da'wah in those early days when I started with Sabur and the other brothers. And I slowly, it just started, and Shaitan's always there, is always whispering. And over time, my intention may have shifted from, okay, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. Maybe I'm doing this for the sake of Allah and, getting the views and doing this and doing that. Essentially, in a nutshell, it got to me. Yeah, the popularity got to me, the fame got to me. And I ended up in another type of crisis where I was again completely lost and had those very same feelings come back again. But this time I was scratching my head, like, hold on a second, I believe everything. I can argue with any atheist in the world and disprove their position and prove Islam is the truth. Logically, there's no problem. I have the arguments. So what's going on? Why am I feeling this now? So I didn't realize what was going on at the time. And that was a big learning curve for me, bro, because it taught me that knowledge isn't enough in and of itself. You know, knowing something, being able to articulate what you know is not enough. In Islam, knowledge has an objective. It's got a purpose. It has to result in something. And the best of knowledge is that which grounds you and turns you back to Allah and allows you to connect with Him and fulfill your purpose of your life. So you can know all of that stuff, but it could become separated from that lived type of reality, where you may know it, but you may not actually feel it or believe it in some sense anymore, or be living according to it. And that may happen gradually over time. And that's essentially what happened. So spiritually, I wasn't connecting. I wasn't, present. I wasn't that sincere and honest with Allah anymore, or with myself, because we're very good at lying to ourselves as well. And then over time, it broke down again. And if anything, bro, for me, this anxiety thing has been a blessing, because it's helped me catch myself before I've fallen way off track. It's almost like a punch in the face. Okay, it's time to wake up. Alarm bell. So I had to figure that out, and I realized that. But this time round, it wasn't as easy as doing the sajda. And although I tried the same methods again, but no, it's almost like Allah wanted to teach me that, look, you're not going to get it as easy every single time, because when you get things easy, you don't appreciate them, and you have to work for it. So that was a huge journey, bro, trying to really find myself again and connect with Allah again. And it was a very troubling time for me as well, because I'm involved in dawah, I'm doing this stuff, we're telling people stuff, but you're in this crisis inside. You're broken. That was very difficult, bro. Very, very difficult. But alhamdulillah, over time, I figured that out as well. And then obviously since that time as well, there's been other types of, things happen in life. And I realized that I have this is just my disposition, that I'm sort of, Allah made me in a way where I have this system which is prone to anxiety, etc. And I started looking into it. And there was a period where I started, okay, I'm going to just really seriously study what anxiety is. So I went through several books on anxiety and anxiety therapies and CBT and the first wave, second wave, third wave types of treatment, other related things to anxiety like mind-body syndromes, etc., because I wanted to fully understand what was going on. And that was a blessing in itself, because one of the things I did, I started realizing that there's so many people that go through stuff like this. They have a level of anxiety, they're suffering from it. With it comes OCD and compulsive thoughts. And there's a whole physiology behind it as well, bro. And it's good to know those things, because when you know how your body and mind work, then you can really start working on it. So yeah, it's been a journey, bro. And even now I go through stuff.
So you've mentioned to me before that the physiology is like a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit and the kind of strategies you use to actually overcome that.
Yeah. So I'll explain it, but I'm going to end on a very powerful realization I had a little while back, which was everything I've been able to glean and learn from all of these books and stuff, right? And the essence of it, the summary of it, yeah, you find it in the Qur'an. Allah gives it to us. I never realized it before. So for example, there's at least 15 times in the Qur'an where Allah mentions this formula. And the formula itself is, those are the ones that won't grieve and won't fear and have any grief. Those who don't fear and they don't have any grief. Allah mentions the same formula over and over again. Fear normally is referred to, the type of anxiety of things to come. And the grief is referring to the depression of things that have happened. And then before that formula, there's always these qualities Allah outlines of people who actually are, have this state with no fear and no grief. And when you summarize it, you could broadly break them down into three categories. The first category is iman, belief. The second category is amal, deeds. The third category is a bit more broader. It includes taqwa, islah, self-development, self-purification, all of those things. So the people that have a strong belief, iman, do good deeds and continuously work on themselves, essentially, they are the people, Allah is saying, that won't have fear and they won't grieve. Now, if you go further and you think, okay, these three categories, iman, good deeds, self-development and improvement, all of this in Islam comes under what? It comes under submission, acceptance, submitting your will to the will of Allah. You acknowledge it, you do what you have to do the good deeds, and you can constantly work on yourself to improve yourself. All of this is submission, acceptance. Now, if you look at third wave treatments for anxiety currently, the first wave was all behavioral, change the behavior. Second wave was change the thoughts of the issue. Third wave is, it's not change the thoughts, it's change your relationship to the thoughts. And the way you change your relationships to your thoughts, these anxiety-driving thoughts, is basically you don't react to them with fear. You essentially, what they say is you accept them, you allow them, right? So it's like a type of submission. There was a doctor called Dr. Claire Weeks back in the day. I think the early 1940s, 50s, I can't remember exactly. Her works were very pivotal in my life for my anxiety, dealing with this stuff. And her whole message is, the reason you can't escape anxiety and you get lost in it is because you fight it. You fear it. You want to get out of it. And when you want to get out of something, you want to fight it, there's fear involved, right? There's this agitation and anger towards it. And that further pushes you into it. Because when you're afraid of it, it's the fear cycle, as they call it. So this fear releases adrenaline, which causes more anxiety and symptoms. And then it causes more fear, and then it leads more release of adrenaline. So it becomes this vicious cycle. So it's basically your nervous system. You have your autonomic and your, what are they called? They're referred to as, I can't remember now, subhanAllah. Sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Your sympathetic is your fight and flight. Your parasympathetic is your rest and digest, basically. Everyday life for a normal person, you're sort of bouncing between the two, right? And there's a balance. When you're in anxiety, you have gone into the sympathetic activation, basically, and you remain in it for prolonged periods of time, basically. So essentially what her thing was that, and this is what third wave is, a lot of it's based on, is the reason you're stuck is because you're fearing and fighting these symptoms or these thoughts or this OCD or whatever it is that your anxiety is. Just accept it. Let it be. If you have symptoms, if you have pain, if you have fear, just let it be, accept it. And when you accept it, what you're doing by submission and acceptance is you're no longer fearing it. And when you're not fearing it, your physiology changes. No longer are you releasing adrenaline. If you're not releasing adrenaline, all of those symptoms are going to slowly disappear over time. And you're going to get out of that. Same with your OCD thoughts. When you get those obsessive thoughts, okay, they're there. Acknowledge them. Let them be there. Don't try pushing them out. Just get on with something else. But as soon as you focus on them and you try to research them and solve them, you get more angry, more fear, more adrenaline, and you get stuck in the cycle again. So essentially what I'm getting at is that her whole thesis was the way out is acceptance and submission. What's greater than not only submitting to and accepting the symptoms, but accepting the one and submitting to the one that creates all these symptoms. The one behind all of these things. So if you accept Allah, you submit to Allah, then you accept His will. Whatever He gives you, He sends your way. You're not afraid of it anymore. You're not worried about it. Alhamdulillah. And if you can have that shift, and it's a very hard thing to do in practicality, but if you can get into that state of mind and accept it, regardless of what symptoms you're having, your anxiety symptoms are, slowly they're gonna disappear. Because what's keeping them active is the fear. And if you look at this from a sort of metaphysical perspective, Shaitan, I believe, also injects himself in these moments. Because he wants you, he understands your psychology, he understands your physiology. He's been doing this for a very long time, since the time of Adam. He wants to get in there and get you stuck in these cycles. Because when you're stuck in these cycles, bro, trust me, when you're obsessive, compulsive about a certain thought, and you see this among some young Muslims, they may get a doubt, and they get stuck in that doubt, and they're fixated on it. Normally, you clarify it once, they come back 2 days later. It's because it's that OCD, they're stuck in that. And Shaitan keeps saying, oh, this is important. Don't let go of it. And as soon as you say, I'm going to put it aside, there'll be a waswasa. No, it's important. Pay attention. Don't let go of that. This is a lie. You need to go back to it. You need to focus on it. So you keep getting stuck in that. And why? When you're stuck there, bro, it's a distraction. You're finished, because what are you going to do? That's your life now. You can't socialize. You can't connect with people. You can't, you're not focused on your prayers. You're not focused on your connection with Allah. That is your life now. And if anything, you're losing your time. Time you could be spending doing other things. It is a challenge though, bro. Like even now, like I have my somatic symptoms that crop up every now and then. I have my IBS, my back pains, my obsessive thoughts, the waswasa that comes sometimes. It's not that it disappears, but when you learn how to deal with it, you can overcome it.
So what are the kind of tools that you use now, whether it's just practical tools or from the deen or any kind of Islamic practice? Give us a kind of, what's your medicine, if you like, your spiritual, practical medicine that you use to overcome these recurring symptoms, if you like, of anxiety?
Yeah, I think the best, and again, it's something it's a pocket you want to stay in, but you can't always. If you can just sit down and remind yourself that Allah has created everything and there is a wisdom behind everything that happens. He is in total control. Anything that's going to happen in your life in the future, what anxiety is essentially about, it's rumination, it's thinking about what may happen, what may be the case. I may health anxiety, I may have this condition. I got a headache, it may be this, it may be a tumor, it may be this. All of this type of stuff is worrying about things you have no control over and things that haven't happened. If you remind yourself Allah is in control, you're not in control. Whatever's going to happen tomorrow, only Allah knows. You don't know. And Allah wants best for you. If you believe in Him, you worship Him, you submit to Him, Allah's not going to forsake you. He's not going to play around with you, do bad things to you unnecessarily. That's not who Allah is. Whatever happens is good. Have good thoughts of Allah. This is another very key one. Really, again, I think the key message is it's easy to say these things, but really try to believe them with your heart. Allah wants best for me. That's it. Whatever He has planned is best for me. I leave it to Allah. Allah, remove the trials from my way. Make things good for me. Make me successful. Allow for me to experience things which will bring me closer to you. If you can get yourself in that space, that's your submission. That's you giving up to the will of Allah. That's a powerful place to be, bro. And that's, I think for me, that's one of the tools is don't let shaitan get the better of me. Don't let my own mind get the better of me. Because it's wiring, bro. The brain is neuroplastic, as they say, right? Certain neurons that, they say the neurons that fire together, wire together. If you constantly wire yourself to think negatively, well, that's how you're going to keep thinking about things. So that will change as well if you just give it that initial shift. I'm not worried about these things. It's just anxiety. Yeah. So you have to take a meta sort of cognitive approach and look at it from the outside. Okay, my thoughts ain't me. They're not me. I am currently experiencing certain anxiety thoughts. They're just anxiety thoughts. They're not reality. They haven't happened. So I'm going to let the thought be there. I'm not going to try to push it away or fight it. You can stay there, thought, but I'm going to go do something productive. I'm going to go pray, go work on some project, go help someone. And that's it. And eventually what you'll notice, as soon as you invest in that mindset, bro, you'll notice that the fear and that tightness inside you will dissipate. And physiologically, you're going to relax, and then within a few hours or maybe days, those thoughts, those feelings, those symptoms are going to dissipate themselves. But if you don't do that and you get stuck in it, it's just going to get worse, bro. That rumination, the OCD, it just gets worse the more you feed it. And also another thing I do is just remind yourself, if it helps, that look, like I said, shaitan is always there. His objective is to take you away from Allah. So one of the things I do is, okay, if his ultimate goal through all of this is to take me away from worshipping Allah, as soon as he gives me a compulsive thought or some sort of waswasa, I'm going to go do something that is a type of worship that brings me closer to Allah. Because if his objective is to take me away, well, he's going to say, hold on a second, this is backfiring. As soon as I try to throw him off, he actually gets closer to Allah. I'm going to stop doing this. So even if you see it that way, it will help. Because essentially that is the reality. Shaitan doesn't want you to turn to Allah. That's why he does all of these things to us. Ultimately, that's the objective, to take you away from the worship of Allah. So do the opposite. And I know when people are depressed and anxious, that's the last thing they want to do. Because they're in this bubble that my problem is real, is the biggest thing in the world right now. I don't want to go do this X, Y, or Z. But you have to, and this is where you have to remind yourself that Allah's given you a certain level of control. He's given you awareness, consciousness. He's given you a will. You need to exercise your will as well. You have to fight it. It's a struggle. Life is a struggle. This is just an aspect of that struggle. You can't give in and give up to it. Because if you do, then that's it. It's finished. You have to keep struggling, bro. Sometimes it's a struggle. I know another brother, may Allah bless him. I won't say his name. He has a very similar struggle. Every day he has some sort of anxiety thing going on, etc. So it's a constant battle, bro, for some people. And I know, especially as we go through this postmodern age, and with all of the AI stuff and social media, things are only getting worse, bro. The anxiety is being triggered for many reasons today, whether it's existential or otherwise. A lot of people are suffering from it. It's just a case of having these tools and utilizing them, inshallah.
So, may Allah bless you, bro, for your authenticity and giving us your framework and your stories. It's very powerful. Now, you're also a lighthouse mentoring mentor. Mm. So you have sometimes mentees that, register for a session and they have a lot of OCD, anxiety, borderline depression. Maybe you could give us an anonymous story on how you got someone to understand they were in this particular state, and what were some of the things that you told them to get them out of that state?
Yeah. To be honest, bro, this has happened for me, at least from my experience. 95% of the calls that I've taken,
wow,
it's some level of anxiety that the person admits to, and in many cases they have been going through treatment. And I think this is another point. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or a therapist or a counselor, so get medical help. There's no shame in it. Like I said, anxiety I don't see it as a problem or a mental health issue per se. It's more of it's a natural state that a human being experiences. Everyone has a nervous system, bro. Everyone's nervous system goes goes haywire sometimes. Some people sometimes, because of the disposition, get stuck in a heightened state of arousal, basically. So it's just a case of figuring that out and rebalancing yourself over time. But get professional help for it. But what I'm sharing is from my experience and what I've read and things that have helped me, inshallah. So normally what I do is I do advise them to get help, counseling, therapy, etc. A brother, Abu Isa, a Muslim psychiatrist, child psychologist, mashallah, beautiful brother. He helps brothers and sisters online as well. You can check out his work. There's been many occurrences where I've had a conversation with someone. They've come in with really intrusive thoughts. They've been very anxious. You can hear it in their voice, and you can tell that it's affected them so much that it's led to a type of depression where they're cut off from everything else. They feel down, exhausted, and depression in a sense is that nervous system exhaustion. You're just fried basically. You're tired. And then the tricky thing is most people don't want to admit it because it's seen as something like, oh my God, this person's anxious, or how weak are they? How much of a weak person are they? So they don't like admit. But sometimes I do eventually ask them when it's very clear that that's what's going on. Have you ever experienced anxiety or intrusive thoughts or OCD? And they would admit it in many cases. And then it's just the case. I tell them that, look, we've covered some of your doubts. I've given you the answers. And sometimes they've come back 2 or 3 times. And then I'm like, the second or third time, I'm like, okay, look, we've answered this question before as well. You acknowledge, you understand what's going on. But can you see you've come back with the same question again? So essentially what you're looking for is a type of reassurance, because you're looking for certainty. Not that you don't know the answer. I gave you the answer. You remember it. But you're looking for reassurance. And chances are, if I give you the answer again, you're going to come back in another few days. And aside from that, the bigger problem is it's impacting your life. You're stuck on this thing. You can't enjoy yourself. You can't experience life anymore. And they're like, yeah. And then I would tell them, look, okay, do one thing. Number one, park it, right? Like, firstly, cut yourself off from these sources that are triggering you. Normally it's Google, online, Reddit, YouTube videos, clips. Stop watching those things. Don't watch those things, okay? Because all they're doing is that your mind is going to look for something else to latch onto. And here's another problem. Here's another problem. So it's a never-ending sort of Pandora's box of issues and problems. Stop doing that. Take a break, right? And I explained the whole process we went through. Look, you have to realize your nervous system is in a state of arousal. You have compulsive thoughts. This is normal. Many people have it. It's not a problem. But you just need to realize what's going on first. And then, okay, here is the solution. It's like, look, best analogy I give. Have you seen those Chinese finger traps, bro?
No.
We used to have them back in the day. Chinese finger traps basically is this little straw, and it's weaved in a certain way. And what kids will do is you put your fingers in both ends, right? And they get stuck because it tightens. Yeah, the threads tighten. But the funny thing is, you want to get out. The natural reaction is when you want to get out, what do? You pull. But the funny thing about this contraption is the more you pull, the tighter it gets. The way out is counterintuitive. You bring your fingers together and it loosens. That's very true of the mental world. It works in the opposite way to the material world. Normally when we have a problem in life, what do? You look for solutions and you solve the problem. But in the mental world, things work differently. If you try to solve those problems, i.e. pulling out, trying to find solutions, running away, fighting it, getting angry, it's just going to get tighter. It gets more constricting. You have to do what's counterintuitive. Just relax into it, accept it, no problem. If you see it as waswasa or you see it as an intrusive thought, whatever label you give it, maybe both are true from different perspectives. It's just there. It's fine. Everyone gets it. So don't isolate yourself. A lot of people isolate themselves. Oh, I'm the only one in the world that's experiencing this. Oh my God. No one else understands me. No, many people have this. They have it in their own way. They just don't talk about it. It's fine. Everyone gets it. I'm getting these intrusive thoughts. Take the meta perspective. I'm going to leave them there. You can be there, right? Even if it helps talking to it, you could be there. Yeah. But I'm going to go do something else. I'm not pushing you away. Stay there in the background. Do your thing. Or you can come along with me and we're going to get on with life. Right? Just approach it like that and you'll see the shift. Because what you from a sort of neuroscience, not neuroscience, but psychological perspective, what you're doing is by approaching those OCD thoughts like that, you're disarming them. What you're saying is, what you're teaching your brain is, this is not dangerous. Because when you start, oh my God, what is this thought? I need a solution. I need to go search Google. I need to go to ChatGPT and find answers. You're acknowledging, yes, this is dangerous, brain. And then the brain keeps giving it to you, right? But if you say, no, I'm going to park it, I'm going to get on with something else, not going to entertain you, not going to research you, not going to do anything like that, you're teaching your brain, no, this is not dangerous. And what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain in the process. Okay, it's not dangerous, fine. And then slowly you'll just get rid of it. It won't be important anymore. And the emotions and feelings associated with it will dissipate as well. So just do that for a while. I say it's difficult, but just try it. When these thoughts come to your mind for the next couple of days, just acknowledge them, let them be, they get on with something else. And see how you feel in a couple of days. So don't check in. Because again, there's so many layers to this. Because you check in, some people check in, oh, is it still there? Am I still feeling that thought? That's adding more fuel to the fire. Because that's fear-based. Oh my God, is it still there? It's like looking into the dark closet. No, let it be. If it's there, it's there. Let it be. Give it enough time, it'll disappear. Just get on with it. Assume it'll be there for a few months. No problem. Get on with your life. And before you know it, it's gone. Right? So it's very counterintuitive. And if people can understand this, you know, there's a beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where, I think it's a hadith, if I'm not mistaken, where shaitan comes to a person and says, who created this?
Yes.
Who created that? And who created this? And ultimately, maybe the person's entertaining it, and then he gets to the point, well, who created Allah? So he's leading a person down this path of overthinking, overanalyzing. And then he gets to the point where he says, who created Allah? Trying to get you, seal the deal here with you. And the response is, amantu billahi wa rasuli. I believe in Allah and His Messenger. And if you look at that response, bro, what is it? What's going on there? That's that person saying, I am not entertaining you anymore.
Yes. And it's also acknowledging that it's not actually a rational issue.
Yeah.
Because even in our tradition, for example, the classical scholars like maybe Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, he said like this is absurd. It's the absurdity of the infinite regress. God by definition is an uncreated creator. You can't have an infinite regress of causes. God is the uncreated creator, and He's eternal. So we have these philosophical answers in our tradition, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is basically giving you a spiritual solution or a great strategy, which is similar to the strategy that you spoke about, which is I'm ignoring you because I know you come from a non-rational space. Yeah. Now imagine there was a rational answer to this. The person might come back after a few hours or a day to ask the same question, which is very deep. And also it relates to other ahadith, authentic ahadith, where the Sahaba had similar intrusive thoughts. Yeah, these whisperings. And they were like, they didn't believe in them. They had a psychological aversion. And the Prophet ﷺ basically said, is this true? And then they said yes. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this is a sign of iman.
SubhanAllah.
And then the solution that the Prophet ﷺ gave was not to act upon them, not to speak about them. Yeah. And there's another hadith that I believe indicates just seek refuge in Allah, which is exactly the strategy that you've been talking about.
And look how powerful that is, bro.
Of
The
course.
Prophet ﷺ says this is a sign of iman. There's immediately a shift towards those thoughts, those waswasa. As soon as you see it as a sign of iman, the fear is gone. It's like subhanallah, alhamdulillah. And that change in approach or how you see those thoughts is going to shift your physiology, and the thoughts are going to disappear.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's very powerful. It's like Islam has the answers. I'm not obviously, when I was looking at, I was like, maybe I wish I had done this as a, maybe done it on an academic level and studied it further. Because I'm sure and there's Muslim psychologists and psychiatrists out there. I'm sure when they approach the Qur'an and the Sunnah, bro, and they look at the tradition, they probably find so many things which relate to what people are only starting to discover today, as far as helpful tools and techniques to deal with anxiety and OCD and all of this type of stuff. It's all there, bro.
Yeah, of course.
SubhanAllah, it's all there.
Allah bless you. So let's summarize the kind of tools that you've given us. So let's see if I was a good listener, yeah?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, you spoke about the kind of 3 aspects that are important in dealing with this type of anxiety, yeah? It includes iman, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you also included that you have to have husn dhan billah, a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah wants good for me, yeah? He doesn't want bad for me. Anything that He gives me, He wants good for me, and you're going to look for that goodness, right? And so it's iman, and that also includes having a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said good deeds, yeah? Like, it was very interesting. Your key strategy was, okay, I'm not fearing this intrusive thought. I'm suspending it. You stay there. I'm doing my thing. Good deeds, helping others, which is extremely important. Yeah. So the righteous deeds, and then the other one was basically purification of the heart, developing yourself, working on yourself. So those 3, and all of that is within the framework of submission, which you said also echoes the kind of psychological tradition that the 3rd wave in terms of how to deal with anxiety, which is I submit, yeah. And it's a greater form of submission. You're not submitting to something that is basically abstract or has no true meaning. It's like, I know I'm submitting to this because the one behind all of this, I'm submitting to Allah because Allah is behind everything. Yeah. Right. Allah is basically responsible and causing everything. Yeah. So I'm submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So I'm not only submitting to the idea that I have these anxious thoughts, I'm submitting to the one who's responsible for these anxious thoughts, yeah? And I know there's good in this as well because I have husn dhan billah. So far, so good?
Yes.
Yeah. Good listener?
Very good listener.
So,
You actually put it better than
no,
I put
not
it.
at all. So that framework itself is a very powerful framework. And also what's very good is the positive framing of this is a sign of iman, especially when it's intrusive thoughts. And also you said, which was very powerful, I believe, which was that this is a natural state of a human being. All human beings have a nervous system response to certain things that are borderline and anxious. But the person who suffers intrusively from this perspective or excessively is that they get stuck in it.
Yeah, a heightened state of
it's a heightened
arousal,
state.
basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like someone who's running a marathon and they trip. You either decide to get back up, you keep on running, or you just stay there.
Yeah.
So some people, and you're going to trip in a marathon, in a race. It happens to most people. But what happens to some of these people, the metaphor here is that they get stuck and they stay there. So all the strategies that you just given us basically get people to stand back up and they can continue the long journey in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also even say it's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah loves those who He tests. So that kind of positive framing, and to be optimistic about the thing. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in an authentic hadith that if your soul has been done something wrong, don't say my soul has been wicked, say my soul has faulted. So it's a positive framing.
Yes.
Yeah. So having that positivity is important as well. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, bro, because the shaitan wants you to do the opposite, become negative, lose hope in Allah.
So what kind of good deeds would you do to counteract? Oh, the other strategy, which reminds me, to act in opposition to the intrusive thought or the shaitanic whispering. Because if shaitan wants you to go this way, you're going to do an action, even if you don't feel it, to go the opposite way, which is closer
Defeats
to Allah.
his purpose. Yeah.
And the more you continue it, the more you become it.
Yeah.
It's an excellent strategy as well. Jazakallah khair. So maybe the final question or penultimate question, what are the kind of, acts of worship or good deeds or things that you do that help you when you enter into that state?
I would say for people that are going through anxiety, because they're already overthinking. They're already, and sometimes they would overthink even what Islam is teaching. I've seen this amongst people. They're almost, anything they read in the Qur'an, they will take in a very negative way, and see in a very dark, and it's just the state that they're in. They're in fight or flight. They're seeing everything in a very heightened, unrealistic way. So normally I say to them to keep it very simple. Go easy on yourself. You don't have to be perfect. Allah doesn't look for perfection. He looks for persistence. You're human. If you were perfect, then there's a problem. So whatever comes easy to you, whatever gets you to get up and do something good, especially for someone else, that's very powerful. So even if it's just like stopping and talking to the elderly neighbor down the road who's always standing in their garden, and you always slightly cross the road or look down at your phone because you don't want to have conversation with them, just stop and talk to them. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You'll probably make their day. You won't even realize. They probably haven't had their children visit them in 20 years. Yeah. If you're just smile at someone, man, for like, just give someone a smile, help someone cross the road, help your parents, do something nice with your kids. If you have kids, do something for someone else, be at service to other people, because that's one of the ways Allah has, allowed us to do good deeds. Because a lot of times, especially in this sort of atomistic, individualistic world that we're a part of, even when it comes to good deeds, we always tend to focus on ourselves. My tahajjud, my salah, my fasting, my charity. Yeah, although it's for others, but it's like, I did. Try to just do something just do things for people. Speak to people, socialize with people. Yeah, and it could be a means of powerful dawah for them as well. You don't even realize it. And it'll have a positive impact on you too. It'll get you out of the rut.
And this reminds me of two verses actually. So one verse in the Qur'an when Allah says like the reward for ihsan, excellent goodness, if you like, doing good deeds in an excellent way, is ihsan itself. Yeah? Also the verse concerning Yaqub alayhi salam in Surah Yusuf, when Yaqub alayhi salam says, I complain about my grief to Allah alone. Straight after that, what does he say? He says to his sons, go search for Yusuf, your brother, and his akhi, meaning Binyamin, and do not despair of the life-giving mercy of Allah. Only those who reject the truth despair of his life-giving mercy. So the tadabbur here is that you're going to be in a state of anxiety or contextual depression or whatever kind of negative state you're going to be in. Complain to Allah, so that iman aspect, right? But also do good. Remind others of Allah's mercy, which is an act of goodness, right?
Yes, of course.
And which is very interesting, even in the secular sense. A lot of people who engage in counseling or psychotherapy or psychiatry, the practitioners, those who are counselors or psychiatrists, it's actually a therapy for them.
Of course, yeah. Because many of them have gone through something which led them to that profession.
And doing good to others, service to others. And it reminds me of something I saw maybe last year about this psychologist who basically says the cure to dealing with this stuff is not to over-ruminate. Over-rumination has been a disaster. The whole kind of woke culture, that we focus on our problems, the old school mindset of
trauma. What's my trauma?
Get over it. Life's difficult. Wear home it. Move forward. Yeah. Life's going to hit you in the face. Just keep on moving forward. Just get over it. Yeah. Just keep on working. Keep on doing good.
Yeah.
And psychologists now are basically saying that type of culture, the woke culture, the focus on the problem, zoom in on it, it's your whole reality, express yourself about it, that was actually facilitating the over-rumination. And that over-rumination has created the anxiety and all of this kind of psychological, this psychological malaise. So absolutely, bro. It reminds me of that. So do good, basically. Do good to others.
Yeah. And sometimes for some people, I know it's very, for us, who don't suffer from this, it's very easy, a certain type of anxiety, to do something. Actually, even if for some people, they don't feel like it because they're depressive feeling. For others, they feel like they physically can't, because there is a manifestation of anxiety which is very somatic, which can be in a type of chronic pain, or this debilitating type of anxiety, which you just get, immense symptoms when you just get out of your house or go socialize, social anxiety. And what people go through is so scary that they just don't want to be in that situation. Do it anyway, right? Because it's not going to kill you. Go to any therapist, they'll tell you anxiety is not going to kill you. The crazy, scary symptoms you're going through, whether it's in the form of thoughts or physical symptoms, they're not going to kill you. So start engaging, because by engaging, again, you're teaching your system that this is not dangerous. And eventually it's like exposure therapy, right? So add in, get up and do something, do good actions. Whether it's difficult for you, just try, do something small. Start off one day, something small, even if it's getting out of bed, do that the first day. And then slowly build upon that. And you'll have bad days, but keep going. And again, that boils down to what life is. It's a test, bro. It's not supposed to be paradise.
So how do friends, family help in this? Or how can they help in this?
They can. So I think being understanding is key. Giving the person space, because sometimes people can get very frustrated with people that go through anxiety because of the repetitive nature of it. Where the person with anxiety can't say, for example, leave their home. Their spouse or their family may think, what's wrong with you? Just get up. You got legs, walk out the house. What's going to happen? But the lived experience of the person in that moment is very real. I'll be honest with you, bro. There were periods where, and I'm going to share this because hopefully it'll help someone. There was a periods where my anxiety and this state got so bad that I couldn't go out the house without having immense symptoms, bro. Where I felt like I was going to die. I couldn't breathe, tightening in the chest, neck tightening up. It's just this nervous system was going. You can't control it directly. That's the thing with the nervous system. The way you train it is through engaging and showing it's not dangerous. You can't convince it by talking to it. It doesn't work like that. It's different. So I was there. I've been there. And the way out was every single day getting myself up and getting out and doing a little bit, even if it's like walking to the top of this road or getting to the front gate of your garden, and then getting a bit further out. So from a family perspective, someone helping them, be patient with them, encourage them, but don't over pressurize them, and then encourage them to get help. Because there is good help out there, bro. There's many Muslim psychologists and psychiatrists as well. If the Muslim brothers and sisters feel comfortable, there's options these days. Don't be afraid or shy to access those resources, and learn about it. Learning about it yourself as well. Instead of Google searching, crazy symptoms and scary doom stories. Okay, go learn about how it works, how your system works. How to sort of help yourself. That could be really helpful as well. But just take action. And I think that's why those doing good deeds, actions essentially, is a crucial aspect of recovery as well, bro. Because we're not created to be...
And you shouldn't give too much meaning to the action because you may not feel it at all.
Of course not, yeah.
But the action itself, irrespective if you believe it's going to work or not, works by virtue of it being an action, because it actually... helps change your neurochemistry.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, because you're showing yourself, I went out, I did it, even though it's painful, but I'm alive. And that's how you teach rewire your nervous system.
It's almost like fake it to make it.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And the action itself, if you keep on repeating it, it's going to have that effect.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So finally, bro, in terms of the good news is you are a great case study. You're involved in the dawah, you've engaged in lectures, debates, you've written a book, you're writing another book, you teach, you train, you're doing this great work. Now, look at the journey Allah has taken you, bro, from existential anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, not only writing a book about it, but helping others with the existential anxiety and helping them with iman problems. That itself, bro, is just a phenomenal gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your ability to actually have now dealt with it. Yeah, and you're still dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
Of course, bro. You're even going to give talks sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
I'm having symptoms, bro.
Yeah,
but I'm just getting through it.
And you have the tools now.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. And you've grounded them in the Islamic tradition, which actually has enhanced those tools. Yeah. So well done, bro. May Allah bless you. We're all proud of you anyway, especially me.
Alhamdulillah. Bro, I'll be honest. One of the biggest blessings was coming across you guys in my life. Because, you know, you mentioned earlier as well, I think it was in the earlier podcast, you know, who you relate with shapes the way you are. You become what you become. Obviously, you know, as Allah decreed, I didn't have really good people around me growing up. You know, not good characters, you know, weak people. And just being around some of you brothers, it really helped get me out of certain states or grow in a certain way. So being around good people as well is very important. People that understand you. And even if you don't share with them what you're feeling or what you're going through or what's going on, the inner turmoil and you know, chaos, just being around people rubs off on you. You start behaving like them. You start picking up certain traits. You start learning how even just by seeing how they deal with certain situations, you start applying that naturally to your life. And that helps as well. You know, so being around, you know, yourself, Sabur as well, because I know, you know, I don't know if he's going to kill me for saying that, but he has issues. Let's just say, we know he has issues, yeah, generally speaking.
We all have issues.
We all have issues. But he's gone through a lot of stuff as well. And the way he handles it and manages it, you know, it really taught me a lot as well. You know, the way you would, you know, deal with stuff. Maybe you were having your own breakdowns inside, Allah knows best, but the way you would handle and manage certain stressful situations, I learned a lot from those things. Yeah, so, you know, people wonder why I've got a soft spot for you and Sabur and become really mushy. It's because of these things, bro.
Likewise.
But
and
yeah,
this is actually a good ending point, because having good brothers around you to support you or to be anchors is so critical, to have that brotherhood, because we can't live life alone, bro. It's impossible. And this is the beautiful thing about the Islamic brotherhood. And, you know, al-mu'minu miratul mu'min, the believer is a mirror of another believer. So your sadness is my sadness, your happiness is my happiness, your anxiety is my anxiety, yeah? My strength, your strength is my strength, and we should mirror each other. So yeah, I think brotherhood is so key, and just having people around you is so phenomenal. And I think people should not feel shame, especially amongst men. Sometimes we feel shame to ask for help or ask for support. But I think we spent, you know, over 15 years together, and we've gone on such an amazing journey, and it's a huge blessing, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing to be ashamed about. I mean, the prophets experienced grief.
Absolutely.
You know, Prophet ﷺ, you know, Surah Duha. You study that surah, it's essentially everything we've talked about can be found in that particular surah.
Absolutely.
You know, where Allah encourages him, reminds him of his favors. You know, it's what's coming is better. So optimism is injected in, because normally there's this despair and doom and gloom. And then, you know, to do good deeds, good actions.
Absolutely.
And to declare the favors of Allah. So everything is there. It's in the Qur'an, you know, in many places over and over again. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just a natural, just like people get physical illnesses, sometimes you end up with mental illnesses. And the key thing, I think the last message I want to leave with people that are experiencing and suffering from this is as much as it seems like it's all over, it's a doom and gloom, because that's how you feel in these states, that there's no hope. Allah is there. Never lose the hope in the mercy of Allah. This is a part of the test. You're going to get out of this, right? It's going to take a bit of time. Just start doing small things. Don't give it over too much importance. Don't give it too much attention. Start working on yourself and slowly getting yourself, and you will get out of it. You know, there's many people that go through this stuff, you know, but you get on with life. You have to get on with life, you know. So now I guess I'll be probably, if I went back to the doctors, they diagnosed me with sort of high functioning anxiety, I guess, which is he's going on, or from an autistic perspective, type of masking. But I don't think it's masking. Like, I'm myself right now. Yeah, during this podcast, there was moments where I had certain symptoms come up, but they come up and then they go away because my response to them. Like, yeah, okay, I know you. It's fine. It's nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna go in a second. It stays there for like 30 seconds and it's gone. So become good at, you know, picking up on what's going on. Don't let shaitan take advantage and sneak in there and say, oh my God, that's it. It's over. This is the one. It's gonna take you out. You know, recovering from. This is exactly what he wants you to do. Just don't let him in. Keep working on yourself. You're gonna get out. It's not a big problem. But just don't feed it by doing those repetitive patterns, hopefully which we've sort of unmasked to some degree today. I think that's the biggest thing that keeps people stuck, is the over-focus and fixation on these things.
Beautiful, beautiful, bro. I think this was an inspirational story. I think it's going to help a lot of people, give them encouragement, inspiration, and hope. Because the whole point of one of our campaigns at Islam 21C is hold on, which is basically hold on to life, hold on to the hope, hold on to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's always there. Have husn adhan billah, have a good opinion of Allah. And, this whole campaign is going to deal with things like depression, suicide ideation, anxiety. And your story has been a great inspiration. I want everyone to get this book. You could get it from Sapiens Institute website for free to download as a PDF. Or you can basically go to Amazon and get the print copy, my dear brothers and sisters. It's a great book. And one of my family members read this book and they thought it was extremely moving, bro. So Jazakallah for that. Bro, wallahi, it's been emotional. And may Allah bless you, and Jazakallah. And we're going to have you again, inshallah, yeah?
Inshallah, bro.
May Allah reward you, bro. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.